Welcome, everyone. Donald Davidoff, co-founder and CEO of Real Estate Business Analytics, here for yet another episode of The People Behind the Performance, where I sit down with key leaders and disruptors to dive into what's driving the real estate industry's success, the role data plays in it, and tell the stories of the people behind it all. I'm here today with guest Minna Song, who's the co-founder and CEO of MeetElise, talk about a disruptor, the leading provider of conversational artificial intelligence to the multifamily industry. Minna graduated from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Those of you who know me, I have a soft spot there, with a degree in computer science, and she founded MeetElise shortly afterward. She's passionate about the capacity of technology to transform traditional industries so that they better serve humanity. And with that, let's just dive right in. Welcome, Minna.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
So a nice big open-ended question at the beginning. As you think about the state of the industry today, what's on your mind?
Yeah, there's so much going on. Of course, there's a bunch of changes, I think, in the short term and the long term. But if I'm just speaking from a tech perspective, which is what I obviously think a lot about, where we are today, I think has come a long way. We started this company over 5 years ago, and back then we were pitching customers who didn't know what AI was, if you can believe that. They didn't know what AI stood for, that it was artificial intelligence. And today, multifamily is one of the first industries that is actually deploying really advanced technology, really advanced conversational AI to solve serious business problems that they've been having since the dawn of time. So I think that's really exciting. Like as a machine learning company, we keep our eyes really wide open, not just in our industry and what's happening in technology that's for us, but we also look at what's being built in other industries. And I probably people within this industry don't realize that that this technology is more advanced. I don't think that people maybe would have thought that the real estate industry would have been a first mover on.
Yeah, it's not like multifamily has the reputation for being cutting edge on technology. We usually complain that we're 10 or 15 years behind the others. So that's a really fascinating perspective. So that's what you covered there, especially with AI and sort of being on the cutting edge, that's a lot. It's very sophisticated for this industry. On the one hand, you talked about how exciting it is. What kind of keeps you up at night, though? What's sort of scary about all this?
Yeah. Honestly, for me, I'm thinking about, okay, this technology is incredible. It's, but what opportunity do we go into next? And also how to manage that as a scaling company that, that is so that there's an incredibly difficult challenge of fulfilling the demand of a pipeline of clients while also making sure that you're on the forefront of innovation. And
that rings true. Reba's a little younger than MeetElise, but I keep talking about how we have many more opportunities than we have resources. So that is a real challenge for a tech startup, particularly a co-founder. So let's turn a little bit to the personal side. Much like myself, many people in this industry really get into the industry sort of obliquely, and I sort of refer to this industry as flypaper. Once you're in, you kind of get stuck. It's actually a pretty cool industry with a lot of really great people. So, you've been in the industry a little bit, a little less than I have, but share with the group, how did you start out in this industry? How did you end up in this crazy thing we call multifamily?
Yeah, so I didn't come from a real estate background at all. I came from tech, but we started to learn about it because we really wanted to do something that would help advance an industry that serves a fundamental need, and housing is one of those needs. And so we didn't know anything about it, but we were excited that we thought that we could add technology to the mix and help in ways that we could bring a different perspective. I think there's lots of challenges from coming outside of the industry into the industry and building technology there. Some pros, some cons, but I actually, when we first started getting into the industry, I took a job as sort of an office manager for a real estate company, and that was a really good opportunity to do a lot of research because I can actually front lines, I can talk to everybody, I can ask a lot of questions to people. and just listen and see what are the real problems that people are experiencing. And I think one of the very obvious things, probably a week into this role, was people constantly complaining about communication. Oh, it's slow. I couldn't get this answer. I couldn't tour the building. And it was obvious we had to solve that problem. And my co-founder, we have backgrounds in software engineering, and we thought maybe we can automate this, and started building out that product, and basically overnight solved that problem when we sold it to our first property management company.
Yeah, I'm actually sort of fascinated by that story, because you came from outside, but you very sort of purposely picked this industry. Those who know my history, I got here totally accidentally. I was working for a pricing software company, got on the project, and that was 1999. And here I am 23 years later. I still feel like an outsider, but everybody tells me I can't claim outsider status after 23 years. But I am curious, you mentioned there were some pros and cons of coming from the outside. Share with me, one or two of each. I'm fascinated by how people learn about this industry.
Yeah, I think it's sort of the, you see what you know type of situation. And so I think the good thing about bringing an outside perspective is that you solve problems in different ways. And so, for example, we built things that automated processes because we were automation people. We didn't build tools that just helped to make the systems or the processes incrementally better. We just thought about solving it in a completely different product way. I think what is missed is all of the small things that you just accumulate over time about understanding what are their workflows, why are they the way that they are. You don't have the sense of, is what someone's saying big or small? Is that a big deal or a small thing? And you get that over time. I think you have to make sure you're in front of customers a lot if you come from outside the industry, to start absorbing that from them. But if you sort of build in a little, in your own little box, you will miss out on the things the industry needs to tell you. I think that's pros and cons.
No, that's fascinating on the missing out, because I remember in the first literally 10 years I was in the business, I made a point of shadowing as many people in different positions as I could. You kind of did the ultimate shadow, right? You took a job as an office manager. That's sort of the ultimate shadow. So great.
We actually moved down to DC, to Arlington, to work with Avalon Bay in their offices for 6 months, and planned out product with them and asked questions, and they told us things, and that was sort of that's when we grew into the product that we have.
No, that was great for them to partner with you like that. I mean, the things you pick up at the water cooler, you just can't pick them up any other way. That's really great. So when you look back on what is admittedly still just early in your career, you got such a great future ahead of you. But up to now, sort of, who's been your most influential professional mentor? Who's had the biggest impact on you?
Many people. I think from just a company perspective, one of our investors, Joanne, is just one of the smartest people I've just ever met. Asked me the right questions at the right time. Really changed my mind about the direction we were going several times. I think two people that come to mind in the industry are probably Sean Breslin, the COO of Avalon Bay, and Jason Kessler, who's the COO of Edward Rose. And I think they've come to mind because it's sort of, if you go to a doctor and you don't feel well and you're saying, you want to feel better, what can you do? The doctor will just tell you something you don't want to hear, but it's eat healthier and exercise.
Right.
And both of those people, Sean and Jason, are just like that. We can talk business, we can talk running companies, and tell it to you straight whether.
So what is the biggest challenge facing MeetElise right now? Oh, I think we had an audio issue there. Give it a moment.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
There you go. You're back. It's all good. So what I was saying, what is the biggest challenge that MeetElise is facing right now, and how you're going to overcome that? And I asked that with a little bit of an intentional ulterior, right? You're about 2.5 years ahead of Reba on the maturation curve. So I'm going to listen intently to what you're facing, because I'll bet you will be facing that in a couple of years.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly demanding to scale at the rate our customers need us to, while at the same time constantly telling ourselves that we're not doing enough to innovate. I think that that's it's very easy to do, like, to say, oh, let's solve this problem, and then let's solve that problem, and then let's build a new product. We do those things at the same time, and it's kind of a constant level of discomfort. And I feel an intense amount of respect for my team and for everyone who does not rest on our laurels, that we, it's a constant state of chaos, and because you sort of just say what we're doing is not good enough, and here are a bunch of ideas, and we have to we have to go after them or miss the opportunity. And I think good enough is maybe the two most dangerous words in the world.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. That I feel that pain every single day. Here's one of my favorite questions. So you've been in the industry for 5 years now. So 2017 when you got in. What's one thing that you've learned over these 5 years that you wish you could go back and teach 2017 Minna Song? Because you know that now, in 2017, Minna didn't know that.
Well, I probably would have told myself about COVID, but I think that integrations take years, not weeks, not months, take years to build correctly. So I think that that would be good to know going into it.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes, what is it? Entrepreneurialism is just a irrational leap of faith. If you actually knew all those things, maybe you'd never start. I don't know, but I totally get that that particular challenge is very, very real, even more so in our industry.
For sure.
Cool. As we get into the back half of this, let's turn a little bit to Reba's favorite subject, which is around data. Obviously, the term data-driven decision making gets thrown all over the place. You come from a data and technology background. What does data-driven decision making mean to you?
Yeah, I think everyone knows that you need to have metrics, that you need to collect that data and measure the outcomes that those metrics lead you to. And there's been a big revolution in the last decade or so that certainly drilled that into everyone's heads. But I think what's important to be truly data-driven is to think about data in a more second-order fashion. So you need to think about why you are measuring, what you're measuring, and what's actually being captured through your measurements. And sort of a lot of times there's two metrics that it's good to make sure that you're not singularly focused on one thing, but sometimes there's metrics that have sort of a push and pull, and in combination, those are the things that you should be looking at measuring. So a very simple example of that is like, you have you can singularly be focused on, let's say, speed to response. Let's say you have a leasing team and it's response. But then that could be speed to response could mean, oh, you just press enter with a blank message or something. You could just say you could say a really rude short response, and that the pull to that needs to be some measure of quality. And so I think that data-driven decision making means positioning yourselves in a way that you're seeing the whole picture, and then being able to use that data to not tell you what to do, but to at least tell you where to deep dive.
Yeah, no, I love that push-pull thing. At the risk of giving a quick little commercial on Reba, one of the things that we did was we invented a metric we call week supply, which is the availability divided by the trailing 3-week net leasing average. Because availability is scary, the higher it is, the worse. But if I've got high availability and I'm leasing super fast, I shouldn't be scared. And so the idea of like take this push and pull and create a single metric that relates health, if you will, with this headwind tailwind. So on balance, is the headwind tailwind good, bad, or not? Because the industry as a whole will like fixate on availability, and high is bad, and then not necessarily pay attention. So that really, when you said that hit me right away. I'm curious. So at MeetElise, how do you go about measuring performance, or with your I guess sort of two questions? How do you measure performance for MeetElise, and then what do you think are the best practices for your clients to measure the performance that MeetElise is helping to create?
Yeah, I actually think those two are very closely coupled.
Okay.
we want the things that we measure to be the things that our customers should be measuring for their business. I mean, generally what we measure for that is we measure quantitative and qualitative. So quantitative being like lease conversion, and we focus on how much, how far we're getting, and what volume we're getting through each stage of the leasing funnel, from lead to tour to lease. And then also when we're building new products and innovating, we want to make sure that we measure percentage of adoption of our products. Because if we're building stuff but nobody wants it, that's stupid and a waste of time and a waste of their time hearing about products that they don't care about. And then on the qualitative side, we do we look at conversations. So we do sampling of conversations with prospect that think, we actually look for, do they think that they're speaking with a human? So our AI is asked out on dates, and so we look for these, like the reactions of people, and that's something so you can capture when you're sampling from large volumes.
I wish there was a way to capture how many times does somebody show up at a site and ask for a lease. Anecdotally, you hear that. I mean, I hear about that all the time. Be great if there was a way to capture that and actually like keep a little running ticker of how many times that happens. That's really cool. So I mean, as a leader, I mean, you're thinking about driving culture at your own company. You're trying to drive culture in the industry and for your clients, because a more data-driven culture, I think, is obviously good for MeetElise as a product. How do you go about championing a data-driven culture? It's easy to say, not so easy to do.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest that we failed many times at it. We've tried, and I think of myself as a relatively technical person that can understand and understand data and get data from point A to point B, and in a way that makes sense. But I think that's a great question, because getting a data-driven culture is very different from getting data. And so I think about after many failures and many attempts, I think what I found to be most successful is basically picking the smallest amount of things. So 2 metrics, really, sort of that push-pull, like you were mentioning, and then make people memorize that. It's like memorizing their times tables. If they know that metric at any time anytime you just pop up and ask them, and if they don't, then there's a lack of culture around what matters as the company, and like what they're working on day to day, the number one thing that is affecting, that they can be in their position to affect those numbers.
Cool. So you sort of answered part of the next question I was going to ask. So let me frame it for you. I was going to say, where's a good place? Like where's a good place to start a data journey? What advice would you give an operator starting that? So I heard you say, focus on a couple of key metrics, not a whole bunch. That's clearly part of it, but maybe a little less on the a little less on the data architecture side, a little more just on like, how do you start that journey from a logistical perspective, from a change management perspective, et cetera?
Yeah. So sort of, do you mean by how do you get people to make changes?
Yeah. So like, okay, I'm listening to this. I'm going, yeah, great. You know what? We need to be more data driven. I'm going to go pick those 2 or 3 metrics. I like the push pull. Okay, so now I've actually done the easy part, if you will. I've picked what I'm going to focus on. Now, how do I wrangle my team to actually focus, right? How do we take this great idea, but in this world of humans who each want to behave however they want to behave, get them to rally around this concept?
Yeah, I think they have to understand why. Number one, why are those? What does that metric even mean? What's baseline? How are we doing compared to competitors? Where were we in the past, and where do we want to be, and what is that goal? And then where does my role fit into affecting that number? But I think making it visible, maybe that's pretty obvious. But is it something they have to, they have to ask somebody for, or is it something they can log in and see themselves, or is it something that's actually pushed to them on over email? And not too much is bad, actually.
Too much is bad. Yeah. There's an optimization curve back from my old pricing days. No, I mean, making data visible and easy to understand, that's obviously near and dear to Reba's heart. Actually, it's funny, you went through it so quickly, but I heard two things that I just want to tag because it took me a while in my early career to learn them. You mentioned explain why. So many leaders tell people what to do and how to do it, and they don't tell them why. And if you really want to win hearts and minds, why is super, super important. And then I'm going to be embarrassed on perennially now because it's recorded for posterity, but I can't remember the second thing that I was going to say about that you brought up. But anyway, really, really, really good advice around, focus on the why, not just the what. And then I love your idea about delivering, visibly, but not over delivering, right? We can drive our teams nuts with too much stuff.
You drive yourself.
Go ahead. Yep.
You can drive yourself with too much stuff. I've had dashboards emailed to me from Salesforce 3 times a day, and it was I learned the lesson from being the recipient.
Yeah. So. Yeah. No, that's a good lesson. How do you go about ensuring data consistency across your organization? Because I think that's another challenge in this industry. I mean, it's the old story of, I've got 4 different Excel reports and they have 5 different occupancy numbers, right? So, okay, I got the data, it's visible, but it's not consistent. I don't know what to believe.
Yeah, let's just say that's not an easy problem. Just it's it's a problem every business and every industry has. So I think starting there, I think like each data source, you have to really understand how those numbers are computed. What for us, for example, what is the definition of a tour? Is a lengthy discussion? Is it somebody who sets an appointment? Is it someone who actually shows up to the appointment? Is one if they tour once but then come back a half an hour later, is that 1 tour or 2 tours? And really understanding deeply, it depends on how far. You don't maybe have to look that deeply into everything, right. But if you see a big gap from different sources, where does that source get their information from?
Yeah, it really is a massive accounting game, and I don't mean accounting like dollars, but just accounting for the buckets of what qualifies as what. I think your earlier comment about integrations take years, not weeks, is probably good advice around that also. If it is hard, so embrace the difficulty and just know you're going to have to slog through it. So last serious question. We've talked a lot about data, about some of the challenges with it. In terms of this industry's ability to continue to march forward with data, what do you see as sort of the biggest threats out there that get in the way of embracing something like MeetElise or otherwise improving your data-driven decision making?
Yeah, I think you exactly touched on it, which is one. I mean, integrations have to be possible, because if you have one tiny piece of it, it's really hard for a vendor to piece that together, and it's really hard for the customer to piece that together if everyone doesn't have access to all of that. And I think that takes time working with your integration partners, working with your vendors to make sure that data is something that you can work with as as an operator. I think there's other things like obscuring that information. Hey, I'm just giving you this number, but I'm not giving you all the details on how I came up with that number. Just trust me. When it comes to data, you should be well versed. This is multi-million dollars of per asset that relies on this data. You should trust yourself. You should trust the details. And so I think that if a lot of this is obscured, then nobody is going to be able to make good business decisions.
To trust it. Yeah. Good. No, that's a really, really good point. Okay. Into the home stretch. Now that we've done the heavy lifting, we always like to end these interviews with a fun little rapid fire sort of James Lipton style Q&A. The only rule is don't think too hard. If you saw any of our other interviews, you probably have seen the questions anyway, but we'll try to do it a little bit rapid fire. So first question out of 7 or 8, what book has influenced you the most?
Yes, many. Most recently, The Hard Thing About Hard Things is just a great read overall. Fun, and I have a weird mathematician one that.
What's the weird math one? Come on, I got to know that.
It's called A Mathematician's Apology. I think that.
Okay.
it's a really short book from a mathematician, and I think I related it a lot to my experience as an entrepreneur, and even though maybe it wasn't directly about that.
Excellent. What is your favorite time of day?
7:15 a.m.
Okay. Going to tell us why, or is that just a very precise answer?
That's when I start working. So it's the clear, the past is the past, the future starts now.
Excellent. I love that. What's your favorite app?
Ooh.
You can blame my marketing VP for these. She came up with all these questions.
I probably am on ClickUp the most.
Okay.
You've heard of ClickUp? It's a sort of a new project management software. We're building out a lot of tools on there.
Excellent. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Biggest pet peeve. I think biggest pet peeve is working, not working with, people or vendors or partners of some sort where you're not kind of all moving, like you all are the same. You all are trying to achieve the same thing, which is the betterment of the industry. Yet, and I understand from business perspectives, but there's sort of like, keep that in mind that these people are probably the most like you out of anyone else. And how do you sort of work together?
I'll echo that. I mean, sometimes I won't name names, but some of the folks out there, I wonder if they really care about the customer as much as we think we care about the customer, trying to help them. So that resonates. Okay, third to last, fun one. What's your spirit animal?
Spirit animal.
See, these are not questions you had on tests at MIT.
They are certainly not. Okay, I'm gonna go with ant.
Okay.
Ants are my favorite animal. I think that they actually make up about 20 to 25% of the Earth's biomass, which is the most. If you take biomass as the data-driven metric, they are the most successful species on the planet. But they work for the collective good, and I think they're pretty cool.
And they work hard. If you had to pick one food to eat forever, what would you eat?
Probably watermelon.
Watermelon. That is not an answer I've heard before, but that's a good one.
Not very
and then last, I'll let you off the hook after this. What is your go-to for just having a good laugh?
For having a good laugh? I like anything with a laugh track. I think the laugh tracks really help. So I've been watching Friends and The Big Bang Theory are kind of laugh track staples.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, hey, thanks again for sharing your insights with us, Minna. Where can everybody find out a little bit more about you and about MeetElise online or anywhere else?
MeetElise.com, and we're around. So my email is Minna, M-I-N-N-A, @MeetElise.com. Excellent.
And if anybody else is going to OpTech, I know you'll be there. Looking forward to seeing you there and other conferences as they come along. Thanks again. Really appreciate it. Love what you guys are doing. Can't wait to see what the next 5 years bring you. Thanks.
Thanks, Donald. Bye.
Bye.